So many people know how to speak to each other. You talk to each other over dinner, over lunch, over the phone, and public speaking is really an extension of that. Because what you're trying to do when you do public speaking is you're trying to achieve a level of intimacy that you would otherwise not have. So think of it this way: how do you talk to your best friend, or how do you talk to your wife, or how do you talk to a girlfriend? That's how you want to engage the public. Because what you're trying to do is tell them things that are dear to your heart. Things you care about deeply and that you want them to connect with. So usually things that are dear to our heart are problems. Things in this world that we care about, things that we want to change. It might be part of the relationship you want to change, or something you want to do in the future, like a vacation you want to go on. But whatever it is, what you're really trying to do is form some sort of unity first, and then form an action plan after that. So, many people...
Hi.
Hello. So many people, when they do public speaking, they only treat it like a mechanism. You're up there, you're speaking in front of a crowd, right? And your words are coming out of your mouth, people are listening. There's more to public speaking than the speaking. See, public speaking is really a projection of your ideas. So if you don't have something inside of you, nothing will come out. And most people who are bad at public speaking, they lose their train of thought. So people who are good at public speaking, they've already thought about their topic over and over again. They know all the points, they know all the details, so that if you ask them any question about any aspect of what they're talking about, they can tell you right away. So, in my case, for instance, I wasn't good at public speaking all the time until I studied my subject enough. I do political science, I do humanities, I do history, I do philosophy, all the things that I care about. And I care about them because I have a certain vision about how the world works. I want to eventually make people engage the world. I want them to be able to talk with each other in a way that is compelling and that motivates action. Think of the alternative. All we talk about is pop culture. All we talk about is your favorite movie or your favorite television show. Talk about your favorite songs. All that is well and good. But what we need to have is the kind of environment where you talk to each other in an intimate, compelling way. And that's what public speaking is ultimately. It's engaging the public, engaging the audience in a way that they feel that afterwards they know who you really are, and that they can work with you and collaborate with you in a real way. So, how do you start then? Well, you start by studying subjects. Public speaking is the end point of whatever you're doing. So, first find out what you care about. So some of you may care about things in Africa, or you may care about AIDS, you may care about poverty, you may care about crime. But you have to figure out what your role is in that. Your individual role in that bigger problem. So maybe you have a friend who's been in jail, or maybe you have someone who has AIDS, or maybe you know someone who died of cancer. It's that critical subject, that emotional subject, that will spur you. Then once you find that emotional subject, you go on and you do the research on that. So you'll find that the best public speakers, they reveal their heart to you. If someone's talking about race, I'm mixed race, for instance. I'm half black, half white. I fortunately have never had any experiences of racism, but I understand it, to the best of my ability at least. So when you talk about race, you tell people about your experience of dealing with racism, dealing with prejudice. Because your first step, whenever you talk to people, is to get them on that emotional level. If you don't have that emotional level, they'll ignore you. Because all you're doing is you're just spouting facts. You're spouting jargon, you're talking about things that really don't concern them. So, find out what you care about most. Care about what you're passionate about. Find out what you're passionate about. Once you find that, then you want to identify the ways to connect with other people. So if you care about AIDS, you want to identify ways to connect the AIDS virus, or the HIV virus, with someone else's experience. So you're making a connection between hearts and between minds. Then you articulate that. So what you want to do eventually is have a set of ideas and a set of words, key words that you say all the time. Now a lot of you do this all the time. You have catchphrases, for instance. Or you have mottos. Or you have things you tell yourself in your brain all the time. All you want to do is to connect that with your ideas. So like for the Lehman College Political Club, the motto is turning passion into action. And this is what we say all the time to people. My favorite motto, personally, is be the miracle. Going to people and getting them to be active, helping to solve solutions on their own. So those kind of things, those catchphrases, that's what people will remember. And what you want to do then is connect that with a set of ideas that articulates precisely how to implement it. So like for instance, right now, I have an outline in my head. And I've developed this outline over many, many years of study. I know for example exactly what I want to say to you. I know how to say it. I know exactly which terms to use. And without that outline, it'd be pretty lost. And so most people, what they do is they start the outline first. And they try to go like in a linear fashion. So I'll say this first, I'll say that first, then I'll say that and that. And that's all well and good. But what you have to do is you have to sort of be the knowledge. So if you're talking about your favorite subject, you want to be able to address it from any different point. So I have an outline, but I can go to the end of the outline, or the beginning of the outline, or the middle. And what you want to do then is you want to use your body language to articulate that outline. So in my classes, for instance, I start off with international relations, and I go into American politics. Then I go into comparative politics and economics, as well as international economy, taxation. Now these are all arcane subjects for most people, but I know it well enough that if anybody asks me a single question about it, I can go exactly to that point and I can explain it. Same thing with public speaking. See, in my classes, what I try to do is I treat the class as a campaign stop. So I imagine I'm running for office, for instance. And this is what I've been planning on doing for the past 15 years, or running for office. I'm not sure what exactly, but I was planning on that. So I was thinking, okay, I'm going to have a class that is potential voters. And if they're going to vote for me, they got to have some reason to do it. Which means they got to be able to connect with me as a person and connect with my ideas. They have to be able to understand me, and they have to be able to understand the ideas. So my usual way of speaking is going very fast, covering as many ideas as possible. So when I do public speaking, I slow down. I try to go methodically over what I want to do. And my objective then is to show everyone that these ideas matter. And whether you're talking about economics, or sociology, or your family, these ideas matter to you. And if you can prove that they matter, then that means that they can then take action on it afterwards. So, it takes practice to do that. Once you get your passion and you get your ideas, then you have to start articulating it. And when you do it at first, it doesn't always work. You have to do sort of a rhythm. And if you look at people who do public speaking very well, they have a flow to them. They know how to coordinate their ideas and their body language and their words very well. So it took a while for me to do that. But once I got used to that, then I understood that what you're doing ultimately is you are mimicking other people. So for example, bad public speakers look just in front of the camera. And they never move their head. And you really have no idea what's inside them either, as a result. Good public speakers, in contrast, they look at you, they identify with you, and they want to make sure that what they're seeing corresponds with the reaction that they want. So for example, if I want to tell a joke, I got to make sure you're laughing, because otherwise the joke isn't funny. And if I continue going down a path that you aren't responding to, then there's no point. So I have to make sure that each person in the audience is responding the way I want them to. Now, it takes practice to identify that. You have to recognize body language, you have to recognize their faces. Like I said, it's just like speaking with your best friend or lover. You have to recognize when they're feeling bad, when they're feeling good, what kind of reaction they're having. Because once you find out what they like, then you hone in right on that and you go for it. You build on that foundation, what they like to hear. If you see the people looking around and ignoring you, then obviously the subject isn't compelling. Obviously what you've done is you've bored them to death and they're probably drifting in space. They're daydreaming or something. That's what you want to avoid. So public speaking requires eye contact. That's your critical element. Without eye contact, it doesn't work. It's not like reading a book. With a book, it's a page. You're just looking in one direction. Eye contact requires requires you to make a connection. And without that connection, it doesn't work. So that takes practice, like I said. It requires you to get used to acting and reacting instantly. You know, the phrase turning on a dime. If you notice someone making a split-second reaction, that's how long it takes, a split second. You need to then react to that instantly. Bad public speakers don't know how to do that. But good public speakers know how to react almost at a moment's notice.